Apparition and disapparition. Apparition is the magical ability to teleport instantly from one place to another, and it's one of the hardest practical skills taught at wizarding schools. At Hogwarts, lessons begin in 6th year under ministry supervision, and students must obtain a license to apparate legally. Apparition is heavily regulated because of the dangers. Splinching when parts of the body are left behind is a constant risk if concentration slips. Wizards and witches are trained to remember the 3 Ds: destination, determination, and deliberation. What's important is that apparition does not require a wand. A witch or wizard may have one in hand, but the magic itself relies on mental focus and control. Magical beings such as house elves can also apparate freely, even into and out of Hogwarts, because their innate magic operates under different rules than human spellcasting. Apparition is limited by distance and by anti-apparition enchantments. Hogwarts, for example, is protected by spells that prevent students from teleporting in or out. Still, the ability to transport yourself instantly is one of the most advanced skills in the wizarding world, and mastering it is considered a defining step in adulthood. Animagus transformation. The Animagus transformation is one of the most famous forms of wandless magic in the Harry Potter series. An Animagus is a witch or wizard who can transform into a specific animal at will, without using a wand. The process of becoming one is long, dangerous, and strictly regulated by the Ministry of Magic. But once complete, the transformation itself requires no wand or spoken incantation. Sirius Black is the clearest example. He used his dog form to survive and ultimately escape Azkaban, where he had no access to a wand. The Marauders as a group also proved the point. James Potter and Peter Pettigrew both mastered their Animagus forms during their second school years to support Remus Lupin during his werewolf transformations. What makes Animagi unique is that the form is always the same animal, tied closely to the witch or wizard's nature. McGonagall's cat form, for instance, reflects her precision and watchfulness. Because the Animagus transformation is wandless, it stands as one of the most advanced and rarest magical abilities seen in canon. Very few witches and wizards ever achieve it, and those who do not undergo extraordinary discipline and risk to succeed. House Elf Magic. House elves are the clearest example of fully wandless magic in the series. Unlike human witches and wizards who rely heavily on wands, house elves can perform extraordinary feats without one, and in many cases their wandless spells prove even stronger. Dobby, Creature, and Winky all demonstrate this. Dobby can apparate inside Hogwarts and Malfoy Manor, bypassing wards that prevent humans from doing the same. He can also unleash powerful magic, such as blasting Lucius Malfoy backward in Chamber of Secrets, without ever using a wand. House elves can enchant objects, control environments, and perform advanced household magic with ease. Their servitude is magically binding as well, forcing them to obey their master's orders, and even allowing them to track or locate those they serve when commanded. Canon shows that house elf magic does not follow the same limitations as human spellwork, suggesting it belongs to an entirely separate branch of magical law. Wizards acknowledge its strength but often dismiss it out of prejudice. Time and again, we see that if house elves were free to act, their innate powers could rival, if not surpass, those of many trained witches and wizards. Self-transfiguration. Self-transfiguration is one of the signature subjects at Wagadu, and it sets the school apart. While Hogwarts teaches transfiguration in a more traditional way, such as changing animals into water goblets, Wagadu specializes in teaching witches and wizards to transform themselves. This isn't Animagus training, where a witch or wizard fixes into one specific animal. Self-transfiguration at Wagadu is broader, and students are renowned for mastering it as part of their standard education. The school's reputation is so strong that the International Confederation of Wizards recognizes Wagadu graduates as among the most skilled in the world at this branch of magic. The ability to alter your own body safely requires extreme precision and wandless focus, and it is considered one of the most dangerous magical disciplines to attempt without proper training. In the European tradition, we see very few examples of anything close to this. At Hogwarts, McGonagall can transform into a cat at will as an Animagus, but this comes only after years of specialized training. At Wagadu, the skill is far more widespread and taught as part of everyday magical education, making making it one of the clearest demonstrations of how different cultures value wandless transformation. Parseltongue triggered magic. Parseltongue, the ability to speak to snakes, isn't just a language, it's a magical trigger. Speaking it can unlock enchanted objects and locations that ignore any other attempt. Salazar Slytherin wove this into the Chamber of Secrets. Only a parcel mouth could open it or command the basilisk inside. Harry, through his unwanted connection to Voldemort, gained the ability temporarily. This let him communicate with snakes, open the Chamber of Secrets, and understand other Parseltongue enchantments. The Locket Horcrux, for instance, could only be opened by Parseltongue, something Ron Weasley managed by imitating the sound. In all cases, no wand was required. The act of speaking the language itself was the key. When the fragment of Voldemort's soul inside Harry was destroyed, the gift left him, showing it was never his own. Parseltongue remains a pure form of wandless magic, a hereditary talent able to bypass enchantments that even the strongest spells cannot undo. Mental magic, Occlumency, and Legilimency. Occlumency and Legilimency are specialized mind-based arts, relying on mental discipline more than wand work. Legilimency is the ability to read or even invade another person's thoughts and emotions, while Occlumency is the defense, closing one's mind to intrusion. Severus Snape is the clearest example of both. He uses Occlumency to conceal his true allegiance from Voldemort, even under direct mental pressure, and employs Legilimency during Harry's lessons. Dumbledore, too, is highly skilled. His uncanny awareness of what Harry feels or thinks reflects his mastery of Legilimency, though he rarely uses the spell openly. While wands and the incantation Legilimens can strengthen the connection, the essence of both practices lies in mental focus, control, and willpower. Anyone can be taught the basics, but only those with immense discipline succeed. Unlike most magic, those arts often need no spoken words or gestures. It is mind against mind, making them among the most subtle and dangerous magical disciplines in the wizarding world. Accidental magic. Before any child receives a wand, their magic tends to burst out in raw, uncontrolled ways. This is called accidental magic, and it usually shows up in moments of strong emotion, fear, anger, or excitement. Harry makes the glass vanish at the zoo, blows up Aunt Marge like a balloon, and even ends up on a school rooftop while running from Dudley. These events prove that wands aren't the source of magic, they're simply tools to channel it. Magical children naturally release power, often without realizing what they've done. Hagrid even reminds Harry in Philosopher's Stone that unexplained incidents in childhood are how Muggle-born families usually discover their child is a wizard. The Ministry of Magic tracks these incidents through the Trace, which monitors underage magic. Until they're old enough for Hogwarts, young witches and wizards can't really control it, so their bursts of wandless magic become the first proof of their identity. Seer prophecy. True prophecy is one of the clearest examples of innate wandless magic. A seer doesn't need spells, potions, or even training. The gift is entirely natural. Sybil Trelawney, for example, lived her whole life as a fairly ordinary divination teacher, but on 2 rare occasions she slipped into a true trance and delivered prophecies that shaped the entire war against Voldemort. The first predicted that the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord would be born, which set Voldemort on the path to target Harry. The second, spoken years later in Prisoner of Azkaban, foretold that Voldemort's servant would break free and return to him, allowing the Dark Lord to rise again, fulfilled with his rebirth and Goblet of Fire. These visions cannot be forced, and they happen without the seer's conscious control. Even the seer usually forgets what they've said. That makes prophecy one of the purest and most unpredictable forms of wandless magic in the wizarding world. Nonverbal magic. Nonverbal magic isn't fully wandless, but it comes close. Instead of speaking an incantation aloud, the caster channels the spell silently, through intent and focus while using their wand. At Hogwarts, students are introduced to this in 6th year, and it represents a major leap in difficulty. The main advantage is surprise. If an opponent can't hear what spell you're casting, they can't counter it as easily. Advanced duelists like Snape and Dumbledore employ nonverbal casting constantly in battle. What matters most is that the spell is driven by intent and mental control, not just by uttering the right word. In this way, nonverbal magic reveals how much raw willpower fuels spell casting, standing as the closest step most students ever take toward true wandless magic. Unbreakable Vow and Ritualbound spells. The Unbreakable Vow is one of the clearest examples of ritual-bound magic. It isn't performed with a simple incantation. It requires a formal agreement between parties, a wand to bind the vow, and a magical witness to seal it. Once sworn, breaking it results in death. The only time we see it in canon is when Snape makes his vow with Narcissa Malfoy in Half-Blood Prince, with Bellatrix acting as the bonder. This kind of spell shows how magic can be tied to conditions and contracts rather than combat. Other enchantments, such as the blood protection tied to Harry at Privet Drive, work on similar principles of binding and sacrifice. While not entirely wandless, their strength lies less in the wand itself, and more in the ritual and conditions that anchor them. Ancient Sacrificial protection. One of the deepest examples of wandless magic comes from Lily Potter's sacrifice. When she refused to step aside and gave her life for Harry, an ancient form of protective magic was triggered, so powerful it made Voldemort's killing curse rebound. This wasn't a spell Lily cast, it was what Dumbledore described as old magic, a bond created when someone lays down their life out of pure, selfless love. In Philosopher's Stone, he explains to Harry that Voldemort could not touch him because of that protection. Dumbledore later extended this safeguard through blood magic, tying it to Harry's life at Privet Drive. As long as he lived under the same roof as Aunt Petunia, Lily's blood relative, the protection endured until he came of age. What makes this extraordinary is that it required no incantation, no wand, no preparation. It remains one of the rarest and most powerful defenses in the series, proving that some of the strongest forms of magic exist entirely outside traditional spellwork. Innate creature abilities. Some beings in the wizarding world are born with powers that function as wandless magic. Vila, for example, can entrance crowds with their allure, sparking chaos during the Quidditch World Cup. Banshees possess a deadly wail, and ghosts linger as sentient echoes of the dead without any need for wands. Werewolves, too, undergo transformations bound to the lunar cycle, triggered by the curse of lycanthropy rather than spellcasting. Even giants are considered magical beings, their immense strength and resilience rooted in their nature rather than in learned spells. These abilities don't come from training or incantations. They are simply built into the creature's essence. Wizards may study, adapt to, or defend against them, but they cannot replicate them through wand work. Such innate powers remind us that magic in the Harry Potter universe is far broader than what's taught in classrooms or channeled through wands. Now, let's talk about the 7 levels of spells in Harry Potter. That's your next lesson at Stickman Hogwarts. Snape's waiting. Click now before he locks the door.